Welcome to Earth Archives. If you have read the Japanese comic One Piece, you will definitely remember the pirate Big Bear Bartholomew. His prototype is Bartholomew Roberts, one of the most successful pirates in the Age of Discovery. Let's get to know this different guy today. Ordinary pirates. Before the show starts, please subscribe, like, and turn on the little bell. If possible, leave your thoughts. This will help the growth of the show. Without further ado, let's officially start. Bartholomew Roberts, the 17th of May 1682 to the 10th of February 1722, born John Roberts, was a Welsh pirate who was, measured by vessels captured, the most successful pirate of the Golden Age of Piracy. During his piratical career, he took over 470 prize ships. 2. Roberts raided ships off the Americas and the West African coast between 1719 and 1722. He is also noted for creating his own pirate code, and adopting an early variant of the Skull and Crossbones flag. He was born John Roberts in 1682 in Casnewydd, Bach, between Fishguard and Haverfordwest in Pembrokeshire, Wales. His father was most likely George Roberts. 6. It is unclear why Roberts changed his name from John to Bartholomew, but pirates often adopted aliases. He may have chosen his first name after the well-known buccaneer Bartholomew Sharp. He was thought to have gone to sea when he was 13 in 1695, but there is no further record of him until 1718, when he was mate of a Barbados sloop. In 1719, Roberts was second mate on the slave ship Princess under Captain Abraham Plum. In early June that year, the Princess was anchored at Anomabu, then spelled Anamaboa, which is situated along the Gold Coast of West Africa, present-day Ghana, when she was captured by pirates. The pirates were in two vessels, Royal Rover and Royal James, and were led by Captain Howell Davis. Davis, like Roberts, was a Welshman, originally from Milford Haven in Pembrokeshire. Roberts and several other of the crew of the Princess were forced to join the pirates. Davis quickly discovered Roberts' abilities as a navigator and took to consulting him. He was also able to confide information to Roberts in the Welsh language, thereby keeping it hidden from the English and international crewmen. Roberts is said to have been reluctant to become a pirate at first, but quickly came to see the advantages of this new lifestyle and saw it as a great opportunity for him. Captain Charles Johnson reports him as saying, "In the merchant navy, Roberts' wage was less than £4 per month, equivalent to £681 in 2021, and he had no chance of promotion to captaincy." A few weeks after Roberts' capture, Royal James had to be abandoned because of worm damage. Royal Rover headed for the island of Principe. Davis hoisted the flags of a British man-of-war and was allowed to enter the harbour. After a few days, Davis invited the governor to lunch on board his ship, intending to hold him hostage for a ransom. Davis had to send boats to collect the governor, and he was invited to call at the fort for a glass of wine first. The Portuguese had discovered that their visitors were pirates. They ambushed Davis's party on its way to the fort, shooting Davis dead. A new captain had to be elected. Davis's crew was divided into Lords and Commons, and it was the Lords who had the right to propose a name to the remainder of the crew. Within 6 weeks of his capture, Roberts was elected captain. This was unusual, especially as he had objected to serving on the vessel. Historians believe he was elected for his navigational abilities and his personality, which history reflects was outspoken and opinionated. He accepted of the honor, saying that since he had dipped his hands in muddy water, and must be a pirate, it was better being a commander than a common man. Roberts' first act as captain was to lead the crew back to Principe to avenge the death of Captain Davis. Roberts and his crew landed on the island in the darkness of night, killed a large portion of the male population, and stole all items of value that they could carry away. Soon afterwards, he captured a Dutch Guineaman, then 2 days later a British ship called Experiment. The pirate ship took on water and provisions at Anambo, where a vote was taken on whether the next voyage should be to the East Indies or to Brazil. The vote was for Brazil. The combination of bravery and success that marked this adventure cemented most of the crew's loyalty to Roberts. They concluded that he was pistol-proof, and that they had much to gain by staying with him. Roberts crisscrossed the Atlantic Ocean, plundering ships off the coast of West Africa, in the Caribbean, off the coast of Brazil, and along the east coast of North America as far north as Newfoundland, where he caused havoc amongst the fishing fleets. Far from limiting himself to single ships, Roberts often captured entire fleets such as the 11 vessels he took off the West African coast in January 1722. The captains of these slave ships were asked for a quantity of gold to get their ships back again, gold which had been intended for use in purchasing slaves. One captain refused, and so Roberts covered his ship in tar and burnt it into a wreck. 80 slaves still in the ship's hold were disregarded by the pirate captain. Roberts used local intelligence, capturing mariners to gain information about particular fleets, and he used various ruses such as flying a nation's flag to approach a target. Roberts was not always interested in mere plunder. In the Leeward Islands in 1720, he set fire to a whole host of ships in harbour as revenge for a recent hanging of brethren pirates on St. Kitts. Roberts was a charismatic leader of men and, most important of all, hugely successful in acquiring plunder to share with them. He did, though, suffer one mutiny in 1720 when a lieutenant, one Walter Kennedy, hanged 1721, made off with 2 ships he had captured. Curiously, Roberts never touched alcohol, his favourite tipple being nothing stronger than tea. Captain Roberts was partial to dressing up for his role as history's pirate extraordinaire, and he gained fame for wearing bright red silks in battle. According to the celebrated Pirates' Who's Who, a general history of the robberies and murders of the most notorious pirates, compiled in the 1720s by Charles Johnson, Daniel Defoe, Roberts went into battle with style. Roberts being dressed in a rich crimson damask waistcoat and breeches, a red feather in his hat, a gold chain round his neck, with a diamond cross hanging to it, a sword in his hand, and 2 pairs of pistols hanging at the end of a silk sling flung over his shoulders, according to the fashion of pirates. Such was Roberts' love of scarlet wardrobe accessories, the French nicknamed him Le Joli Rouge. Roberts was known to fly the Skull and Crossbones flag, amongst others on his fleet of ships, and so this flag may have become more generally known as the Jolly Roger, for its association with Roberts, although there are plenty of other theories as to the origin of the Jolly Roger name. Black Bart Roberts' most famous Jolly Roger flag showed him drinking a cup of wine with a skeleton or devil grasping a burning spear. Pirates were not above a bit of self-promotion, and Roberts' personal banner showed him with a sword and standing on top of 2 skulls. Under the skulls were the letters ABH and AMH, signifying that they represented the decapitated heads of the governors of Barbados and Martinique respectively, a Barbadian head, and a Martinican head, both of whom sent ships in pursuit of Roberts. Unlike most pirates, who preferred a lightly armed, small but fast vessel with a shallow draft like a sloop, Roberts commanded a large ship bristling with 42 cannons, or 52 in some sources, the Royal Fortune. Roberts had worked his way up, capturing ever bigger and better armed vessels over his years of piracy, reusing the name Royal Fortune several times. This, the most famous Royal Fortune, was a French warship built around 1697 in Bayonne. Roberts captured it in Caribbean waters near Martinique thanks to the pirate having a fleet of several ships at his disposal. As an added bonus, on board at the time and so taken captive was no less a person than the governor of Martinique. Roberts detested all authority and the persistent attempts to bring him to justice, and so it was with great relish that he hanged the governor from the yardarm, at least according to the account given by Johnson, Defoe in A General History. The square-rigged and well-armed Royal Fortune allowed Roberts to exchange broadsides with any naval ship sent against him. A Danish victim of an attack by Roberts gave the following description of the Royal Fortune and its armaments. The said Roberts ship is manned with about 180 white men and about 40 French Creole Negroes, and has mounted 12 8-pounders, 4 12-pounders, 12 6-pounders, 6 bronze, 8-pounders, and 8 4-pounders, and in, beneath, her main and foremast has 7 guns, 2 and 3-pounders, and 2 swivel guns upon her mizzen. Roberts soon had to abandon his French Royal Fortune, most likely because the hull was beyond repair after a decade of tropical marine creatures eating away at it. From early 1721, he sailed the Onslow, a ship of the Royal Africa Company. It was renamed Royal Fortune, the 4th and last of Roberts' ships with this name, and, by removing internal bulkheads not needed to separate cargo anymore, space was created for 40 cannons. It was not uncommon for pirate captains to draw up a list of rules for their crew known as the ship's articles. Each man was obliged to sign, leaving his mark if he could not write, such a document and swear his obedience to them. Every man has a vote in affairs of moment, has equal title to the fresh provisions, or strong liquors, at any time seized, and may use them at pleasure, unless a scarcity makes it necessary, for the good of all, to vote a retrenchment. 2. Every man to be called fairly in turn, by list, on board of prizes because, over and above their proper share, they were on these occasions allowed a shift of clothes, but if they defrauded the company to the value of $1 in plate, jewels, or money, marooning was their punishment. If the robbery was only betwixt one another, they contented themselves with slitting the ears and nose of him that was guilty, and set him on shore, not in an uninhabited place, but somewhere, where he was sure to encounter hardships. 3. No person to game at cards or dice for money. IV. The lights and candles to be put out at 8 o'clock at night. If any of the crew, after that hour still remained inclined for drinking, they were to do it on the open deck. V. To keep their piece, pistols, and cutlass clean and fit for service. Vi. No boy or woman to be allowed amongst them. If any man were to be found seducing any of the latter sex, and carried her to sea, disguised, he was to suffer death. 7. To desert the ship or their quarters in battle, was punished with death or marooning. 8. No striking one another on board, but every man's quarrels to be ended on shore, at sword and pistol. Ix. No man to talk of breaking up their way of living, till each had shared £1,000. If in order to this, any man should lose a limb, or become a cripple in their service, he was to have $800, out of the public stock, and for lesser hurts, proportionately. X. The captain and quartermaster to receive 2 shares of a prize, the master, boatswain, and gunner, 1 share and a half, and other officers 1 1/4. 11. The musicians to have rest on the Sabbath day, but the other 6 days and nights, none without special favor. The notorious pirate, as he himself had predicted, was to enjoy only a very short career in crime. In February 1722, Roberts and his crew were on board the Royal Fortune anchored off Cape Lopez, Gabon, having spent the previous night partying to celebrate their latest round of captures. Roberts was killed on 10 February on board his ship after a prolonged engagement with the Royal Navy frigate HMS Swallow commanded by Captain Challoner Ogle, 1681-1750, who had been searching for Roberts for several months. A tropical storm began to blow and the 2 ships had struggled to maneuver into a position of advantage over the other. As the 2 vessels passed close to each other, Roberts was fatally hit in the throat by metal fired as grape shot from one of Swallow's cannons. The body of the fallen captain was put overboard by his men, as he had often instructed him to do in such an eventuality in order that the authorities did not take it and hang it in public. Ogle's men won the day after a 3-hour battle, and 268 pirates were captured. Roberts' crews had often included former slaves, either released from captured slave ships or escapees from colonial plantations who had volunteered for a life of piracy. 77 black African slaves who had fought as pirates were captured by Captain Challoner, and they were all returned to slavery. Tried and found guilty of piracy and murder, 52 of Roberts' pirate crew were hanged in sight of the walls of Cape Coast Castle, Guinea. This was the largest public execution of pirates in the so-called Golden Age of Piracy. Another 20 men were sentenced to hard labor in West Africa, another form of death sentence since very few survived very long in such penal colonies. Captain Ogle, meanwhile, received a knighthood for his efforts and ended his career with the rank of admiral.